And mind you, $75 a week at best is what she was getting paid. Yet he was happier than I was. And this guy's smiling ear to ear. And it was exactly at that moment that I thought, you know what? I got it all wrong. And I had a hogfish with a beurre blanc sauce. And he said, "Do you like the sauce?" And I said, "Yeah, I love it." He said, "That's a beurre blanc." He said, "The beurre blanc sauce was invented in this restaurant 222 years ago." If you can't get through a meal with somebody, you're just a jerk. I've probably owned about 100 cars, and I'm in the middle lane. And you don't want to be in the passing lane on the Autobahn at 120 miles an hour because that's actually slow. You don't dare turn around because you'll lose control while you turn around. And I'm determined to maintain my 115, 120 because I want to see what's coming up on me. And the lights get closer and they're flickering, flickering, flickering. And I think at probably 180 plus miles an hour, a string of 911s zipped by me.
Late night meeting in Dubai in Saudi. I got Tom Cruise. I got Leonardo DiCaprio.
And we see this guy hanging out of the building, and there's helicopters flying around. And well, every time I see Jonah Hill on any movie, I think of Jeff Stearns at the same time. So
and not just because of my build, I understand.
And if you don't call me back Monday with a good solution, I'm going to run a private jet, and I'm going to fly the dog back. Do what you're supposed to do without anybody looking. Price is what you pay, and value is what you get.
Jeff Stearns, connected through cars. If they're bigwigs, we'll have them on the show. And yes, we'll talk about cars and everything else. Here he is now, Jeff Stearns.
So, forgive me, audience. I'm looking at my notes. Larry is so freaking diverse. I mean, what story? So, of course, you could probably tell world traveling stories one after another. And, of course, I married a Filipino girl, and I can't remember if I visited her 4 or 5 times before I married my wife or brought her here and we decided if we were going to get married. But the thing about not being touristy and getting into the local thing, I can't tell you how much I agree. And I usually in a restaurant, and I'll do it here too, but I'll never want to look at a menu. I'll just be like, do they let you eat here? Like on a break, do they give you a meal? Yeah, well, like, what do you have? I don't want to look at the menu. Just whatever you have is what I'll have. But with my wife, one thing that I kind of had to go a little touristy is when we developed a relationship and I was going back just to visit her. And the first time I went, I was supposed to visit some car chat staff and never made it. But she said, on this one, I'd like you to save money, which, of course, I already knew I got to marry the girl. I mean, she's trying to tell me how to save money. I want you to save money. Don't get a hotel. Stay with us. So her family, in about 600 square feet, we got mom, dad, sister, brother, cousin, and no air conditioning.
Oh, God. Yeah.
And I'm like, and listen, I mean, I'm not above flopping down the mattresses and like the Waltons and laying down next to dad. I could probably handle it for a night, but no air, So I was polite and I said, look, I like to watch TV to stop my brain and fall asleep. I need my air conditioning. I want a hot shower. They had no hot water. I want to, of course, the coldest it ever gets there is low 80s at night when it's raining. So coming off the hot Filipino weather, Larry, I think you got like an opposite temperature story that we should hear about.
Yeah, picking on Russia again, the poor Russians, but I was going there quite a bit. A friend of mine from Florida said, I've never been to Russia. In fact, I've never been outside the country. I'd like to come with you. I said, okay, come on over. So we're back in Siberia. It's minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which happens to be minus 40 Celsius at the same time. It was over New Year's Eve. And New Year's is a big deal for the Russians. They celebrate New Year's and not necessarily Christmas. And it's a 10-day event at the very least. And It's symbolic of them having a good new year. You celebrate the new year, right? And then your next year is going to be great. And there's some merit to it. I always like learning about that. Went to an office that we had some business with, and they were so proud that two Americans were visiting that the office on New Year's Eve set up food and drinks and sushi and so on. And it's getting late. It's cold, of course, but it's getting late. And the translators' husbands or partners were there. In this case, one of the translators' husbands was there. He's trying to talk to me through his wife, and I could understand a little bit, but not enough. And she said, "My husband would like to talk to you for a minute." I said, "Sure." So she's right next to me, and he says through her, "Do you fish?" And I said, "Sure. Occasionally I fish." "Okay. Would you fish with him?" I said, "Well, someday, sure. I could fish with him." Now, mind you, I was working hard, spending money. I wasn't a high roller, but I spent some money. I bought some things, that, and motorcycles, cars, almost bought an airplane, those types of things, and wasn't overly happy, to be honest. I was single and so on. So she says again, she goes, "Well, my husband would like to know if you would fish with him now." I said, "Now? Kidding me, right? Like it's New Year's Eve, it's minus 40. I don't know where we'd ever fish because everything's frozen." And he's smiling, like he's happy, Jeff. He is so eager to have this new friend that he thinks he made. And he's like, "Oh, I want to ice fish. We have ice out back. There's a lake and there's a hole, and we ice fish, and we will drink together, and we will sit under the moon." And so I remember him being so enthusiastic about this, wanting to do this with me. And I thought, why does he want to do this with me? He doesn't know me. Like, why is he so excited? And I remembered that this guy is happier than I was at the time. He has nothing, Jeff. The guy had no resources, no education, very little money. His wife was the breadwinner. And mind you, $75 a week at best is what she was getting paid. Yet he was happier than I was. So we ice fished and we drank vodka. And I remember putting on my winter jacket, and they laughed at me. They were speaking Russian. They said, "This is very funny because you're wearing your summer clothes." And I had full on winter jacket, but it was so cold. And so that was the joke. And we sat under the moon and we drank vodka to stay warm, mind you. And this guy's smiling ear to ear. And it was exactly at that moment that I thought, you know what? I got it all wrong. Like, I think that material things make me feel better. That's not true. This guy's happier than I am. He doesn't have anything. And I remember after that trip, I came back to America. I started selling things and spending more time with my parents. And I actually kind of hit, I would say, a reset button. Not for long and not entirely at the level that one might do. But I took a temporary reset, sold some things, and stopped living like a 10-cent millionaire. And I thought, I got to figure out how to be happy, like inside. I wasn't unhappy. I just wasn't as happy as this guy. So it taught me a life lesson. I never forgot that moment. And whenever I think, could I do better? Does somebody else have a better opportunity? I never let it bother me. I'm always, from that day forward, always happy in my skin. And it was a great lesson. It was an epiphany for like what matters most, right? And what matters most, and you've seen it, you live it, your case, your wife, your kids, your friends, that's kind of who you are. That's the essence. So for me, that was a good one. That was a really good one.
Well, I mean, Larry, look, I love toys. I grew up with a father that was big on toys, but I don't want to say, look, we all want to say I'm not materialistic. I don't think I'm that materialistic, but who knows? Because I'm, trying to rate yourself as stupid anyway. That's why everyone needs a corner man and a coach. We all can't see what we're doing ourselves. But my dad never struck me as materialistic, but we had a lot of things. Let me explain. I mean, down in his parking garage at the apartment in Detroit, he had his 48 Bentley. Oh, you can't see the painting in this, but his 48 Bentley. He had his new Lincoln Mark that he got every year, and whatever year Corvette. He always had some Corvette. We had horses. We didn't have mini bikes, but we had friends with mini bikes we'd visit in Michigan. And when we were little kids, what could be more fun than that? Honda Trail 90, whatever. And in the summer, Hobie Cats and that sort of thing. In the winter, go down to Miami, visit all the kids in my neighborhood. So, but what I learned from my dad, and dune buggy. So I always had to, I love dune buggy. Is no one got any enjoyment out of that stuff using it themselves.
Right. That's right.
That was it. I mean, the car was to go. I remember we used to go drive to a friend's house who always had 3 wash buckets in the driveway. I still talk to one of the kids. He's 59, right? But we'd pull up to their house, and there were they had so many kids that drove and neighborhood kids that drove. They used to always pull up on the weekends and wash their car in the driveway, but we'd all sit in the lawn chairs on the driveway while 2 or 3 people were washing cars, but we're all talking and then pulling one in the garage to put wax on it and helping and seeing what wheels somebody put on something or what chrome tips they put on their, I remember their new Laguna. But it was always social. And on one of my shows here, one of my guests was a fella named Scott Ailes. I just love Scott. I really do. Well, I don't have anyone on that I don't love. I mean, why invite him, right? So Scott said the best way to decide what's important in life is to go open Christmas presents alone in a room.
That's a good one.
Or not watch them open what you gave them.
That's true.
So that it's like no fun opening the stuff without the person sharing your expression with the person that gave it. And when I give a gift, I mean, why do I do it? I'm doing it for myself because I'm the one getting something out of it. I'm like, I want to see the person's reaction or cook them a meal or whatever. So I don't know if I'm materialistic, but I have some material things. I have a boat, but it does nothing for me if I don't have company, right? And I have a pool that I never go in unless company wants to come over and use it or et cetera, on and on and on. I mean, it's all about social. And when you're talking about the guy in Russia, I have a lot of experience out in that part of the world with low income. And of course, my Filipino family, low income. I mean, let's just be honest. In a country that's got a lot of people that, from an income standpoint, could be called poverty level. Yet, I don't run into a whole bunch of unhappy people. I mean, this is where I don't drink, but having a drink, I mean, eating, same thing, really. It's social, right? And it's taking something in and it's sharing something. But it's eating, it's drinking, it's storytelling. It might be a musical instrument. It might be a fire, right?
Some of the best experiences always surround the meal, right? And that's that was the thing in these countries I would visit. Even if you were adversaries or you had a conflict with some of these customers, when you break bread with them, it's neutral territory.
Totally different deal.
Yeah, and I remember I flew into France. I actually took the train that time to meet a client that was really upset with us, but they were French, and even when they're upset, they're very dramatic and very animated, but they're still polite, And he took me to this restaurant in Nantes, and it had beautiful mosaics on the ceiling of the restaurant. And I had a hogfish with a beurre blanc sauce. And he said, "Do you like the sauce?" And I said, "Yeah, I love it." He said, "That's a beurre blanc." And you've had beurre blanc, right?
No, I don't know.
He said the beurre blanc sauce was invented in this restaurant 222 years ago.
Oh my God.
So it was a special occasion. And it was always those moments. And we became good friends. And ultimately, we did some good business together. And there was something about the meal that would kind of solidify what you both wanted. If you can't get through a meal with somebody, you're just a jerk. You're not cut out for doing business, and you don't have the skills to to communicate. And you can disagree at the end of the meal. You can potentially not do business, but have that neutral zone and have those meals. I also had a good one, several, but another good one was in Cyprus, in right outside the capital, Nicosia, I think. And we were walking down this cobblestone street, and the Cypriots that we're doing business with were former refugees. They were in the Turkish occupied area. They were thrown out of their homes when they were middle-aged and basically told that they couldn't come back to their own house. They had to start over. And these guys were quite entrepreneurial, and they built up a good business. They ultimately controlled all the license plates in Cyprus. If you had a license plate, they made it. In fact, I think you saw.
I had a couple uncles that made license plates, but that'll be a different show.
That's different. Those guys were doing it. Yeah, they were forced to. But I think I made you one, didn't I? With like one of my Porsches or something. But anyway, these guys pulled out tables. They knew the restaurant owner. They pulled these tables out in the middle of this cobblestone street and then blocked off the street for us.
You did.
Yeah, and we sat and had the best meal. And you can't forget those times because there's something endearing when you break bread with somebody, but also have that discussion. And I always tried to start my meetings with these folks, and sometimes I would be alone. I didn't have any background. They never met me. I never met them. I'd always say, I'm going to arrive for dinner. What time do you like to eat? And where would you like to go? And then that would break the ice. The next day we'd get down to business and we'd do some hard discussions. But one of the times we were in Egypt, in Cairo, and I was with our distributor at the time, and we're in the bazaar. And the bazaar was kind of the shopping district of Cairo. Have you been to Cairo?
No.
Okay. So kind of like Turkey, big shopping district, but you had to enter by the mosque. And we're in a tea shop, and all of a sudden the roof's rattling and dust and dirt's falling down. Everybody's running out the streets, panicking. We didn't know what happened, but there's some sort of explosion and things are collapsing. So we got our stuff. Well, I had bought papyrus, the hand-drawn papyrus, Egyptian images in Giza. And I bought these things from a local after we took our horses up to the pyramids. And you would pay hundreds of dollars for these things. I paid $1 a piece, and I had them under my arm, and literally like dirt's crumbling around us, and we're trying to get out of the tea shop. And we ran out to the other end, and all I cared about was holding on to that papyrus, obviously making sure my friend was okay. And we scattered at the end. Turns out that Al-Qaeda detonated a bomb at a mosque.
Oh my goodness.
Right at the entrance, and it was blocked. So it was, it was a close call, but I brought that papyrus home. I think I had 10 or 12 sheets for $1 each equivalent. And I have them hanging in my houses, and they're just beautiful pieces of artwork, but they mean something, right? There's a story usually behind a dinner or a meal or something unique in those countries. So I never took that for granted. And to this day, all of those people that I met, I could call them. And if I were in their country, they would insist on having a meal together and vice versa. So I would say some long-term friendships were forged as a result of that. So.
Oh, Larry, I mean, I've made it a goal many times, whether it be trying to get closer with someone that might become a client, or just somebody that I'm a little sideways with and it doesn't seem like it's going to heal or get right. And I've made it's kind of like trying to sell an appointment in sales. Don't want to say why, don't want to get into it. Let's just eat. Like, stay on that. Let's just eat. Well, why? Let's just eat. What are we going to talk about? Let's just eat. And I don't think that I've ever left a table in the same space as I've gotten there if I've not eaten with someone before.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal, right? Is very much just learn about what they need and what they want, what makes them tick. And, I'm no expert with it, but I think it was a good education. And certainly,
I think golf course also, but I'd rather work than play golf.
I'm not a great golfer, so I would drag the team down. But nonetheless, that is a good way to bond, and definitely a nice way to get to know people. But no,
if you're stuck with them well, in my case, as long as it takes me to play around, if you're stuck with them for 6.5 hours on a cart, you're bound to talk about a lot of things.
Exactly, exactly. Well, speaking about cars, so if I can, obviously, some of the cars I've had and some of the cars I haven't had. I think my first car, if I didn't mention it to you, was this really poor version of a Shelby Charger. And it was, I think, a 1983 Dodge Shelby Charger. It was not really a Shelby and had no power to speak of, and it was a disaster of a car, but it looked good because it had racing stripes, and I thought that was great. So that was how I started with a car, and wound up getting a Chevy Beretta a few months later, and that was a strange car that I think you loved or hated it. I've probably owned about 100 cars. Might have been a problem at some time. Nothing too exotic or crazy, but as you know, a lot of BMWs, a lot of Porsches, a lot of Range Rovers, and then some things in between, like a Jeep or a pickup truck or what have you. But I remember one night.
But let me clarify to the audience. Larry's owned three figures in cars, and I'll bet you there may have been $100 total combined earned by the dealerships that sold them to him.
If it was that much, that would be disappointing. Now, look, you know what? You told me, and I never forgot it. You said, you know what? You're a pain in the ass, but you're high volume and low margin as opposed to high effort and no volume. And I never forgot that. And actually, some of the business I do today, I'd rather take high volume, low margin than no volume at all. So I always appreciated that crack. And then I think you and I did a deal together right after you insulted me. But it,
yes.
I always liked cars. I like all kinds of cars. I have a pickup truck now as well as a Range Rover, and I love the pickup truck probably because I have a Range Rover. But I just love all cars. So one night I'm in Germany. I'm going from, I think, Frankfurt, maybe back to Brussels. I'm doing about 115, 120 miles an hour in a BMW company car that I have, a diesel, I might add. And it was, Autobahn, unlimited speed limit at that time. And the Autobahn in Germany is not always unlimited speed, but in certain areas it is. And if there's weather, they'll put a warning beacon. It'll tell you how fast you can go. At this point, it's unlimited speed. It's probably, I don't know, it's after midnight. And I'm in the middle lane. And you don't want to be in the passing lane on the Autobahn at 120 miles an hour because that's actually slow. That's like breakdown speeds in America. So I'm in the middle lane and I feel like I'm doing pretty well. Like I'm brave enough to do 120 in my little BMW, and it's going well, but I'm feeling pretty good. And I am coming down a hill and I see this flickering of lights behind me. And I thought, he's going awfully fast. And there's a few cars doing the same. And you can just see the light, but you can't see what's going on. You don't dare turn around because you'll lose control while you turn around. And I'm determined to maintain my 115, 120 because I want to see what's coming up on me. And the lights get closer and they're flickering, flickering, flickering. And I think at probably 180 plus miles an hour, a string of 911s zipped by me. And I thought, and one of them actually had so much compression that flames came out of the exhaust on the, I would say, the backfire going down the hill. And I was so excited, I put the pedal to the metal, and at 118, my car stopped. It just basically had its limit at 118. So I couldn't catch these guys. The minute I got back to the US after that trip, I went to the local dealer. I'm like, I would like a 911, please. And that's how I got my first 911. So it was just, so contagious to see these guys drive. And I had a customer in Germany, and he was a car nut. And his name was Winfred Brooks, amazing entrepreneur, just a great family man. They have quite a business. And he knew that he would drive fast. And he knew that every one of us from America loved that he could drive fast and we couldn't. So we were a little jealous. I'd say, and you would always ask him, you'd say, Winfred, how long does it take from you to go from Hammelburg to Paris? He would say, oh, Hammelburg, Paris, normally 7 hours. Winfred, 3.2 hours. And that was his thing. And we have some pictures of him doing 200, 250K per hour and 300K actually in one of his cars. But yeah, the driving over there is pretty unique. Now, conversely, you go into Belgium, you're following the speed, 110 kilometers an hour. And that was my other experience, that I would get caught for speeding in Belgium at least once a week when I first moved there. But it wasn't as satisfying as being caught in America because there was no policeman with lights. They had cameras everywhere. So my company would call me, and in their broken English, they'd say, Larry, we're very sorry to inform you, you were speeding again. You must please slow down in our country. And it would be 2 or 3 kilometers over, but the police would, send the radar, they'd send a ticket. And I thought, this is not satisfying at all. I want blue lights. Give me a real chase, for God's sakes. This is terrible. And so you have to follow the speed there. You're just going to have a camera pick you up. So, but cars became contagious, and as you know, I would keep a couple cars in the U.S. Nothing too crazy, but an M3 or something like that, and a 911. I would come back from Europe for a weekend, and that would be my driver, and that would kind of make me feel like, hey, I work hard when I'm over there. When I come home, I get to enjoy, family and a car and the sunshine, and the rest. But that was kind of my MO when it came to cars. I might be settling down a little bit. So met the love of my life, and life is good, and cars are less important right now, although I still like them. But it is all tied to a car one way or another, isn't it?
Well, yes, and it's funny because you mentioned that, because another one of the guests that I had, Brett Ramker, who's an Emmy Award-winning NASCAR, IMSA, Michelin videographer, and he's made a full-length feature film called Best in Class, The Making of a Concorde d'Elegance, up in your neck of the woods, about Audrain. His stories are about the people and the car culture, and even if you don't drive, there's always some car, there's always some photo of some relative. Cars are in our life for sure.
Indeed. Yeah, I think so. And it's funny, my future father-in-law, amazing guy, my fiance Caroline, amazing woman, amazing mother.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you, by the way. You will meet her. She's fantastic. Her dad is a car guy like we are. And the whole family, they're all, anywhere from mid-50s to late 70s. They all love cars, and they buy a lot of cars. They're smart buyers. They're very successful. They're in real estate, and they've earned every penny. So they're workers. He knows I like cars. I know he likes cars. And usually one of us is buying something often. So we made a bet with each other. We said, okay, whoever buys the next new car owes the other one $1,000. I said, okay, that's a deal.
Okay.
So all summer long, he's coming home with new cars. And I said, John, you bought 2, I bought 1. You're losing the bet. You owe me the money. He's like, nope. I said, new car. This is a used car. It doesn't count. I said, well, you can't really alter the deal. And then he bought a couple RVs, a couple Mercedes RVs and so on. I said, an RV counts as 2 cars. So you're already in a deficit right now. So we just recently said, okay, let's start the clock over. No new cars in 2021, secondhand only. And then as soon as I agreed to that, he goes and buys a couple more used cars. So it's kind of a thing with each other. We're trying very hard to help each other. He said, you can help me buy less cars, and I'll help you buy less cars because I want you to be responsible because, you are with my daughter after all.
Your accountability buddy.
Yeah. Exactly. He's great. So, there's a new car that's coming out in about a year, and we both looked at each other, and he goes, I'll give you a hall pass on that car. I said, yeah, I'll give you a hall pass on that one as well. So we have a truce if we decide we want to buy this one new car together. But he's got great style, and he's great to me, and he's definitely my fiance's biggest fan, and they're just like best friends at times. They're great. So it's nice to see that dynamic. But yeah, he's got some cool history with cars as well.
Do you have a wedding date?
We're looking at it now, probably next year. We probably won't pull it off this year just based on COVID still hanging around, and we're gonna do something probably up here. There's such a great wedding venue up here, and in the fall, maybe spring or fall, it's a great spot, and we'll invite some close friends, and I'd expect you to get yourself up here. You got to get out of the office and come see us.
I was going to say, I'll ask how it was.
Yeah, you can ask how it was. I mean, like all your weddings, right? Always a bridesmaid, never a bride. But no, you will definitely be up here.
Always a bridesmaid. I have stood up in about 12 weddings, I'd say, maybe more.
Yeah, and what's the retention rate? How they doing, all 12 of those guys?
There's- I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk about the luck.
Exactly. It's not about how many, it's the percentage of success. And if you're responsible for you are partly responsible. But
That's right. So what about? I mean, I'm looking at my notes here, and sometimes these conversations go full blown organic. But with Larry, I'm like, my God, you've been all over the world, and every time I talk to him, we known each other a long time. It's always a new story. So it isn't like I know there hasn't been reruns yet. So I said, are there any bullets? And I mean, my God, I don't know what else to talk about, and I don't know how long we can retain someone's attention. But I got late night meeting in Dubai and Saudi. I got Tom Cruise. I got Leonardo DiCaprio. I'm intrigued. Are any of these worth talking about?
well, I mean, the Tom Cruise one is short but sweet, and you'll appreciate this because if you remember, you did have a BMW movie debut, okay? And it was regarding the Ghost Protocol Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movie, right?
Were you at the theater where I introduced?
Of course, I was at the theater. I will never let you off the hook for that. Yes, I was at the theater, and
I promise I didn't know where this was going.
well, I'll only share part of it, and you could expand on it. But you can take over after I finish the setup. But basically, that Mission Impossible movie that you debuted, because it featured the i3 and the i8 BMW at the time, was filmed partly in Dubai. And I had an office in Dubai, and I was in Dubai all the time. And I love Dubai. I like the people there. It was kind of, if you look at Dubai, it's kind of like the center point of the Middle East. So if you're doing business in Saudi or Bahrain or Oman, people would naturally be able to come to Dubai. There wasn't restrictions. So that was our meeting zone in many cases, even though we went into these countries. So the Burj Dubai, Burj means tower. Burj Dubai was the tower, tallest tower at the time, second to the building in Malaysia. And Dubai was having financial struggles, 2008, 2009, I believe, and they needed money from Abu Dhabi. So Sheikh Mohammed, in a last-ditch effort to get some big investment from Abu Dhabi, decided that as a tribute for the, I think, 500 billion, something massive, he would rename the Burj Dubai, he would rename it Burj Khalifa for King Khalifa of Abu Dhabi. Okay, so that was a tribute. Well, then the day they renamed it happened to be the day that Tom Cruise was hanging out of the building filming that scene where he's on the wire going around. And I was there for that. We were downstairs in the courtyard, if you will, watching celebrations and lights, and they actually had the waterfall like the Bellagio in Vegas, and we're enjoying that, and we're with some clients and so on, having a meal actually with some Saudis. And we see this guy hanging out of the building, and there's helicopters flying around, and we just thought it was part of the celebration of the new Burj Khalifa because clearly it has a new name based on the investment. And then we hear people talking about Tom Cruise, and they said, no, it's Tom Cruise is up there. He's literally outside the building doing these stunts. And I guess he would do a lot of his stunts. So later on the news, which mind you is normally censored, they were very proud to say that the new Burj Khalifa was so exciting that even Tom Cruise would film his movie there. So that movie, when you see him hanging out of that tower, I don't know how much of the scene, but a lot of the scene was actually him on the wires hanging out of the tower, which is just crazy to know.
More importantly, if you look hard enough, you could see Larry down on the sidewalk looking up at it.
Yeah, I wish you could. It's I can't remember the floor level, but a massive building. And of course, they'd censor all the problems, elevator breakage, fire issue, ventilation problem. That never happened. Same thing when they built the islands. This was a quick but great story. Remember the Palm Islands in Dubai? They were very proud to show you that they built these neighborhoods on palm fronds. Each frond of the palm tree was actually a full neighborhood like we're used to in Florida. Well, they had these storms one night, and the storms washed away half of a palm tree. The island, your neighborhood, which is yet to be built, you bought the lot, right, is now gone. Now it's sand built out in the middle of the ocean. And Sheikh Mohammed at the time, we heard through the construction people we knew, he ordered 3,500 dump trucks to work all night long and fill that palm neighborhood back in before sunrise, or they were all fired. So the next morning, it never even happened. And that's how they did some business over there. But that one was interesting, just because we happened to be there by accident, and we saw the movie. Now, going to your program, you debuted the movie, and that was probably the best icebreaker I have ever experienced. You had your best clients, your VIP clients in the movie theater, right?
So we're at a BMW dealership. We invited our best customers, our brand ambassadors, the ones that sent the most referrals, the ones that we made no money on, but we did a lot of volume, whatever it was.
Right.
And invited them to see this pre-release Mission Impossible movie in a private theater, just invited guests. And then I got up in front of the theater. I don't remember if I had a microphone or not.
You did, yeah.
Okay, but
No, you didn't have a microphone because you didn't need one. You know that.
Because I don't need, right? They didn't want to hear it at the theater next door as it is. So, but to make Jeff Stearns happy, all you need is an audience. So I said what I said. I'd have to say I was terrific that night. And do you want to say what happened next, or?
Yeah. So, what's really important to remember, if you remember the sound bed to Mission Impossible, right? You know the tone of the music, right? You know when a Mission Impossible movie's coming on. You've got this dun 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 dun, right?
Yep.
Well, the movie started, and we're hearing what appears to be moaning, some sort of potential sexual encounter. You don't see anything. You see a black screen. I'm not hearing the Mission Impossible soundtrack. People are starting to look around. The moaning's getting louder and louder and louder. And now people are getting a little uncomfortable. You're waiting at any moment for maybe Tom Cruise to pop out of the sky or jump out of a plane. And as it turns out, the moaning then turns to an image. I remember distinctly a bedroom scene with some pictures hanging around the bedroom, and then a man and a woman doing, what you can imagine the moaning would be coming from. And it turns out that was the entree to a movie, I think, called The Babysitter or something crazy at that time, with Jonah Hill.
It was Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill is in it. Yep.
Performing.
Yes. And whoever, doesn't matter. And it seemed like eternity before they would turn the movie off. Now, what I can't figure out is, one, you, being frugal and smart, either didn't pay the movie theater enough to play the right movie, or two, you might have upset the person running the tapes that night somehow in a past car dealing. But this guy, whoever was controlling the tapes, he was having a ball, because you have your best clients there. I think there was a few that were, breathing out of a bag. There was some kids in the audience, and it was.
People left, man. Some people were leaving.
It was tight, and I think you recovered well, and I think you said something to the effect like, "Well, clearly we treat our customers differently than Mercedes," or something like that, and everyone laughed. And for the most part, I think everyone stayed. You eventually got the right movie to come on, but it definitely. It definitely changed the evening. So
Well, the a backstory to that, oh, and I can't think of their name, but they bought a BMW GT, like the station wagon type body.
they were the only one.
They were the one in our area, in our market area.
Oh God, that car.
When we invited them to that, they have such a moral problem with movies that they said we don't go to movies because, and we quite literally, they were buying lots of cars from us. They sent lots of friends in. They were like part of the family. We literally talk them into it. Like, look, it's Mission Impossible, and what could go wrong, and it's action, and where's the morals? And that was the first couple that stood up and walked out of there.
Well, every time I see Jonah Hill on any movie, I think of Jeff Stearns at the same time. So
And not just because of my build, I understand.
no, not at all. Just the fact that you recovered well and you broke a few jokes and apologized and treated people with respect like you always do. And I think that made a difference. But there is a funny one. Speaking of cars, for the record, for the people that are willing to watch our session together.
For the 8% that are still watching, continue.
Exactly. For those of you that haven't dropped off, an old boss taught me once. He said, it's always good to make a deal when both sides leave happy. And I thought, that's good advice, because when you buy a car,
I disagree, but
well, when you buy a car, right, I always thought my job is to get the best possible deal and make it painful for the person selling me the car, because you know what? They need the deal more than I do, and it needs to hurt. But that's actually not the right way to do business. Maybe cars, but outside of cars is not the right way. So I realized that it's better to be fair so that the person wants to do business with you again and come back. Because ultimately, especially now with supply chain the way it is, in some cases, the customer buying the car is held victim to what the dealer wants to do for you. They don't have to give the car away. There's not an abundance in all cases, especially with a specialty car. So that being said, there was I learned that, and I learned that be fair, treat people the way you want to be treated, but also hold people accountable. And if there's a quirk that I have, the one thing that I'm not very good at is if someone treats me badly or steals from me or is dishonest, I have a hard time with that. So I dig in pretty well. And there was a car manufacturer I had a big problem with. And I drove this car from Florida to Maine with my dog a couple of years ago. All kinds of electronic issues, none of the brands we mentioned. And I kept trying to get the car fixed. They couldn't fix it. Halfway to Maine, 100-degree weather, no air conditioning, car wouldn't start, stuck on the side of the road, $100,000 car. This is just ridiculous. They wouldn't fix it. They wouldn't lemon the car. They wouldn't replace the car. So I get all the way to Maine, finally. It was a struggle. And I went to the local dealer. I said, okay, I need you to call your head office. Please help me. 6 months of records. Car's been out of use for 90 days in a year. I would like another car, same thing, a buyback, or I'll upgrade. Doesn't matter. But I need to go back to Florida, and I need to bring this dog back to Florida. And I'm not driving without AC. So I finally get a hold of a local rep, well, I would say a person in an office. And he calls me with some attitude and says, we're not buying the car back. We're not doing anything for you. This is on a Friday. And I said, well, I've owned 9 of these things. I'm not a bad customer. All my neighbors buy them now. I'm kind of a brand advocate. I'm not trying to ask for any favors, but you really got to understand where I'm coming from and what's happened. And he's like, nope, we're not helping you. I said, okay. I said, you're going to make me dig in. This is not going to be pretty for you. I said, do you want to escalate to your boss? This was like the North American headquarters for this company. So why don't you just escalate for me and see if they'll help me? I don't want anything for free, but I'll pay mileage, what have you. And had some miles on the car. Just get me a car that I can drive back to Florida, or give me a loaner. I don't care, but I can't put the dog in the belly of an airplane, and I can't drive without AC. Nope, not helping you. I said, all right, I'm going to give you till Monday. And if you don't call me back Monday with a good solution, I'm going to rent a private jet, and I'm going to fly the dog back on the private plane, and you're going to pay for it. And he's now at this point, he's laughing. He says, we will never pay for that. We don't do that. He's a younger guy. We don't do that. You can't do that. I said, no, I'm doing it. Like, you got to help me out, or I'm doing it. Come Monday, nothing. I call him again just to be nice. I'm like, do you have a solution for me? He's like, nope. I said, really? Like, nothing? You're not even going to help me? Nope. Okay, I told you. So I went online, got a broker, rented a jet. I think it was a Hawker 400. No, yeah. Was it a Hawker? I think it was a Hawker 400. Anyway, long story short, they said, how many people? I said, 1.5. They go, what's the have? I said, it's a golden doodle. And they're like, anybody else? I'm like, nope. They're like, okay. Showed up at the airport, put my golden doodle on the plane. He sat on the floor, played with his toys, all good. 2 hours later, I'm in St. Pete. And half hour after that, he's jumping in the swimming pool, happy as a clam, and home safe, right? That was the goal. So I follow up. I send an email with the invoice. It was almost $17,000 for the plane. I sent it to this kid in New Jersey.
Oh my God.
I said, listen, in addition to buying the car back, you need to now add this $16,800 invoice to the bill because you're going to pay for the plane. He doesn't know what to do. Calls me. He's like, I told you not to rent a plane. I said, and I told you to help me. So I also told him that I would talk to the CEO of the company, and I did. And I reached the CEO, and he put me in touch with his VP of customer service. And the guy was excellent. And the guy said to me, he goes, Larry, he goes, I had a nice, well-written letter explaining what happened and the timeline. He goes, I don't understand why this didn't get to me. He goes, I would have fixed this problem in 30 seconds. I said, well, you know what? I pleaded with your people to get this to you because I figured somebody at your level would want to help. So we're negotiating. He goes, what do you want? I said, I just want a car that works. I don't want any money. I don't want anything for free. So he puts me in touch with another guy. The other guy's like, absolutely, I'm going to take care of this for you. How about this car? How about that car? If you get a bigger car with more engine, more money, you just pay the difference. I said, fine. He goes, and you got to pay mileage. It's about 55 cents a mile. So I owed him about $16,000 in mileage, right? And I said, oh, okay, I'll make the deal with you, but you got to pay for my airplane. They're like, what airplane? We don't pay for airplanes. I'm like, no, I know you don't. I agree with you. You should never pay for somebody's airplane, but you're going to pay for mine. And he looks at me, he goes, what are you talking about? I said, I'll send you the bill right now. And I said, I'm going to send you the email that I sent to your people warning you that you'd pay for the airplane. So long story short, the $16,000 I would have owed for mileage, he looked at the bill and the mileage, he goes, okay, how about we just even? I said, okay, you got a deal. So the joke was that.
Beautiful.
And it wasn't that I would have taken the dog back on the airplane anyway. I had to, but I had to dig in with these guys, and sometimes you have to do that, and it burns the energy out of you. And I almost stopped liking that brand, but this guy was so good at recovering and so much kind of like you, Jeff, that he just said, wait a minute, this is an easy problem to solve, and I'll just do it. So that was kind of a funny one, but goes back to the basics that I expect as well as a customer. I want to be treated the way I would treat my customers. And I think the moral of that story is, hard work and treating people the way you want to be treated always serves you pretty well.
Got it. And you say handle it like me. So I think the point is, as long as they succumb, we're all good.
No, you can reach a compromise. I mean, just an equitable solution. I mean, that was the point. This guy, this younger kid that obviously didn't have training or even know that he should go to his boss's boss or ask for help. His answer was, we're doing nothing. And that's not a solution for me. Or a guy like you, you're not going to accept there's no solution. How about a compromise? How about another proposal or something? And when he refused to do that, that's when I had to educate him and school him on.
No, yeah, right. No, that kind of like calling Michael J. Fox chicken in in Back to the Future. As soon as I start hearing, nope, that's the way it is, then I'm like you. I can't help it, even if I could have made twice as much money doing something else and not focusing on it. I have a very hard time letting go of that.
But I will tell you a funny one, a good one, but a funny one. It was actually my first 911, used one. Bought this car in Tampa Bay, and I went to my best friend's house. And I said, Scott, let's go out to the mall. Let's go to one of the nice restaurants in Tampa. He says, okay. He goes, but I'm driving because I want to leave early. I want to come home early. And I said, well, my car's behind your car. Let's drive my car. It was a convertible. It was a nice night out in Tampa, as you know. And I said, we'll drive my car, but you can drive, Scott. He goes, no, I don't want to drive your car. I said, come on, I just got it. I want you to drive it. So we're driving on Hillsborough, going to Tampa. And all of a sudden, there's a Jaguar next to us, and we're parallel to this brand new Jaguar with temporary plates. Next thing we know, that car is in the air at shoulder height. His wheel is at our shoulder. I'm in the passenger seat. It hits us, knocks us into the curb. He spins out, goes over the bankment into a neighborhood, the concrete walls. We stop. We're smoke everywhere, steam. The car was running. Roll bars came up out of the back of the Porsche. And there's a third car, a Lexus. We get out, we check everybody. Everybody's okay, thank God, right? There's a young girl. She tried to join the eastbound traffic, and she T-boned this Jaguar so fast that it went in the air and hit us. We max her insurance out. His car's totaled. He just got it. My car's almost totaled. Her car's totaled. So we max out the insurance. Well, I decide, because I knew that this car is going to be a problem for me. Now that it's fixed, I have diminished value. So I get an appraisal. They said, you have diminished value. It's at least $18,000 off book value. So the car might have been worth 40. Now it's worth 22. So the insurance company is ready to pay me. And they said, yep, we accept the claim. It's legit. We're going to cut you a check. I said, great. They called me and they said, your car has been hit several times before you bought it. Now, when I bought it, it was a certified pre-owned, guaranteed, never to be hit, blah, blah, blah. And the dealer had checked on previous work and validated that it had never been hit. Well, the long story short is they didn't know either. Someone tricked them. So I'm back to the dealer. I said, we have a big problem. I said, I just lost an $18,000 diminished value claim, and now I have a diminished value car that you sold me that was hit. They look at the paperwork, and the guy was great, kind of like you. I won't mention his name for confidentiality, but he was great. And he said, well, why don't we just get you a new car? We'll just sell you out of this car. We'll trade you out. I said, I don't want to trade. I don't want to buy a new car right now. And he goes, well, I'll make it worth your while. He's trying very hard. So this is 3 p.m. I stay there all night. Everyone leaves. It's now 9 p.m. This was a 2003 911, and 2005, the new ones came out, the 996 or 991, I think it was. And he had a beautiful black one in the showroom. And he said, well, do you want to make a deal on this black one? I said, no, I don't like black. I like gray, which is true. Mine's gray. Just give me a check, give me my money back, give me my old car back. So at 9 o'clock, Jeff, his car was 70-some thousand. Mine was worth 20. He opens the doors of the dealership, basically says, are we good? Puts the template on the new one. I don't know how he did it, what he did. I can't remember all the details, but he goes, this car, are we even? And I said, okay, we're even. He goes, have a nice day. We never break a promise to a customer. This guy stepped up because he was so upset that they didn't know about what happened to my previous car that they said, we're just going to make it right. And I never forgot that. So that was a great story of somebody doing something that they didn't have to. And yeah, it was kind of cool, right?
That is a wonderful story of somebody doing the right thing. And like the beginning of our conversation tonight, a thing I love about you is you keep your word. A thing I hate about that is it makes you stand out. That I love that this dealer did the right thing. And a thing that I don't like about the world is, why is that such an exception?
Yeah, it's sad, right? I remember coming back to Maine, and I told friends and family, I think I told my dad or my mom, is we're going to have a bunch of work done on the house here, and everyone's going to come on time. No one's going to want any money until they're done and we're happy. And I said, just watch. Sure enough, army of people showed up at 8 o'clock to start working on the house. And just to test the theory, my father was with me. I said to one of the guys doing the masonry, I said, how much do I owe you? He goes, don't worry about it. When we're done and you're happy, that's when you'll pay me. And that's the culture up here in New England, specifically Maine. And that's why, if you know LL Bean, the retailer, they started this lifetime warranty back in the 1800s. They've since changed some of it because people have taken advantage of their warranty terms. But their logic back then was, if you ever had a problem with our product, we don't want you to be unhappy. We just want to make it right. And that's kind of the mentality here, that people just want to do a good job. Now, there's outliers, of course, and there's tons of outliers in different parts of the country. In Florida, unfortunately, because of so many different cultures living there and moving there, sometimes it's tough to find a really good tradesman or service person or what have you. Great people in Florida, no disrespect, but try to get your lawn done the same way twice. I mean, how many of us have had 5 or 10 lawn guys, right? And that's just how it goes. But conversely, if you're in Maine, you have a lawn guy, well, you're going to have him for 30 years until he dies. He'll die on the lawnmower before you fire him because he's never going to do a bad job. So there's something refreshing about that when I came back here, that people reminded me of what mattered. And it was so simple, right? Just do what you're supposed to do without anybody looking. And that's kind of a motto I try to live by. The other thing that I think helped, and working for yourself, you eat what you kill. You know what that's like. There's no free lunch, so I don't want it to sound easy and glossy. I'm a small business owner, an entrepreneur, and we make money when our businesses are healthy. But it is very refreshing to keep your word when it comes to simple things that a lot of people don't do anymore. Show up on time. You have a meeting with somebody, be there. Don't cancel on people. There's so many people nowadays think it's okay to cancel. They're so used to it in their generation, specifically the younger generation, that, hey, Jeff, I'm just not going to have the call today because I'm busy. Well, what about the fact that you scheduled it and you carved time out of your schedule for such a thing? So there's a lack of respect in certain areas, in certain people, and in certain generations that needs to stop. And I think that it's kind of our job, my age bracket, I'm 47, I'm right in the middle. I think I owe people that work for me some schooling on the fact that you give your word and you do it. And part of that stems into our restaurant businesses. We have a couple small restaurants up here. It's a tough business. We're in a highly competitive market. It's highly concentrated. It's a great business with 2 different concepts, but we're in the heart of the city where all the action is. And last summer, we didn't have one person call out one shift. Nobody missed a shift. That never happens in the restaurant business. Now, we got lucky, of course, but what we really have, and I'm very proud of it, is we have this micro culture, this little culture within this small, somewhat small business of people that care about us and about the business and about the customer so much that they don't want to miss work and they don't want to hurt their colleague. And when we hire people, we try to tell them that up front, and we try to screen and make sure we're finding the right people, we say things like, nobody's too proud to pick up broken glass or protect a customer. None of us are above, doing any of that. There's no hierarchy here. You have a job, but you also have the ultimate job, which is to keep customers coming back. And then we say things like, if you're not able to be here on time every time and help your colleagues have a great day and a great shift, you won't fit in. If you don't plan to stay here long term, don't come tomorrow. And if you can't smile and be a good teammate, don't come at all. We say things like that. And we've been so lucky, Jeff. We've got so many great employees. Not a lot of employees. We're a small business, but the ones we have are great. And it almost seems like the not so great ones, they don't even apply. I think they see our team and they're somewhat awestruck by it. Customers tell us we have the best service standard in the town. And last year, we were still new business. We won 5 out of 15 awards in the city. Best restaurant, best service, best date night, best drink, best, you name it. And that was because of our people. So we're quite proud of that. And I think that's part of what makes me tick, that whether you're selling cars or you're selling food or you're buying something, it seems to come back to the person that matters most. And people do business with people. And I believe that, we owe people an education on what customers want.
Larry, I always said that to my salespeople and service people that you're not competing with the other dealership, you're competing with the other person. Because I don't know an entity, I know the person that I deal with at the entity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if the one thing I can take going into, my 50s and so on is, I want people to always say, whenever I did business with Larry, he did what he said, if not more. And if I need something, I can call this person or this guy and he's going to deliver. And it can be minuscule. It's so easy to have an excuse on why you couldn't do something. And it's sometimes hard to just do what you promise, right? We all run out of time. Our days are busy. And I'm far from perfect. But you know what? In my world now, I don't have hundreds of employees reporting into me, and I have my own little agency, and then I have the restaurants. We have we have a nice org chart and a nice team. Somebody needs something and they're counting on you. My motto is, you've got to do it, and do it fast, and do it with a smile, and move on to the next thing. So, yeah.
So Larry, the hourglass is running out, but I don't want to lose you without hearing about the plane that almost didn't make it going out of Kiev.
Yeah, something about Eastern Europe and their aeronautical skills or their desire. I mean, God love them. But yeah, I remember I had to fly into Kiev from Brussels. I think it was Ukrainian Air, right? Blue and yellow tail. I think it's Ukrainian Airlines. Yeah. And they were hesitant. I remember when I had to book the ticket, Brussels said, we're not sure if they're flying. I'm like, oh, that's not good at all. That's just not good. But I needed to get there. So I think it was a Friday night flight at a Saturday morning meeting. I flew in. I was in the back of the plane. It was the worst meal ever. I mean, it was hot, mind you, that they somehow were able to heat the food up, but then they wrapped it in this shell of aluminum that just was scary to open. And I remember landing. The flight crew was nice, but the plane was rough, really rough. And it snowed over the weekend, flying back out on a Sunday night. And I'm looking at the airport. I have my private license, so I like aviation, and I always like to understand the weather and what's going on and what's not going on. And I didn't see a de-icing crew, which was a first indication that there might be a problem. And I also didn't see plow trucks plowing the runway. And the snow was building up, but I did see a snowbank at the end of the runway. So get on the plane. I'm waiting for the de-ice, no de-ice. I'm watching the ice build up on the wing. It's not so bad, or I would have got off the plane, but it was questionable. We line up on the runway. There's no wind. Of course, he's got the runway heading, which is bringing us right towards the end of the runway where the snowbanks and pine trees are. And that's recipe for problem. And this guy, I would have done a short field takeoff. You know, your listeners that fly, especially commercial pilots, they know very well, more than I do, what you need to do in that case. But you certainly de-ice and you certainly make sure you have enough runway. He barely got off the ground, and by the time we got to the end of the runway, the gear blasted through the snowbank. We were probably 6 feet off the ground. I mean, he should have been 100, 200 feet in the air by then, but he used all the runway to gain altitude. I don't know what he did wrong. Obviously, we had a full plane, probably heavy on fuel. Temperature wasn't a problem because it was cold, so your air density is great, but we plowed through the runway, the gear's down, of course, because you're low altitude, and snow and ice bang against the fuselage. So now I'm thinking, you know, we're not going to have a gear that works when we get to Brussels. Sure enough, gear goes up. They circle a little bit because the gear wasn't indicating that it was green when they were ready to land in Brussels. We finally get down. We land in Brussels, get off the plane. Next day, Ukrainian Airlines ceases operations into Brussels. They were shut down due to unsafe conditions. But there was a few close calls like that. And, you know, it's in all due respect to our friends from Ukraine or Russia, just, you know, the airline was underfunded and didn't have the budget to protect. It was also during the conflict of Ukraine and Russia. So there was a funding issue and so on. But yeah, they almost didn't make it. So. But yeah, that happens often, right?
Larry, yeah, that's scary, right?
Yeah, indeed.
So amazing. I'm looking at the clock. I'm not looking at the clock because I'm bored. I'm looking at the clock because I'm blown away. We've been together a couple hours.
Well, that's how long it would take you to negotiate with me on a car. I mean, Jesus, there's nothing new here.
That's actually when we're down to the final $10 a month. So now we're down to the final couple hours.
$10 is $10.
And we may need to have you back on, but look, Larry, you're a great friend. I mean, you started out as a client, you became a wonderful friend. Our lives have intertwined quite a bit, professionally, personally. I'm grateful because I know you're busy. You have a lot of businesses. You're planning your wedding. You got your new love of your life partner. You got a lot going on, and you made time to come on here. What I really hope for, just like in your restaurant that's known for just the best service, I hope people listen to these and say, you know, that's an interesting story. That was worth my time. I really hope we deliver some value. I was riveted. So I'll get my mother to watch. I promise you'll have a couple fans no matter what.
I appreciate that. And remember, somebody taught me this as well. Price is what you pay and value is what you get. And that's important.
Yeah, now you say that. You never said that to me in the showroom.
Unless, of course, I'm buying a car from you, then none of that matters. Go back to A.
Because your philosophy when you were buying from me was, if I could recall the translation, was price. And while you're at it, can I get a side dish of price? And while you're getting that, can you get me some price?
And don't forget the floor mats.
This has been Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars.